Ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and yes, somehow by some strange miracle, I remain alive and well, even though it has been a solid 2+ months since my last video. And while I would like to go further in depth as to what has been going on, let's just say there have been a great deal of personal and family emergencies that has been interesting, to say the least. However, while I do have some now very old topics that are in need of discussion, I thought it fitting that my official return to the platform be a discussion surrounding the game that is not a game that is a game that's not a game, Earth 2. And in particular, an analysis and rebuttal, or rather refutal, of some recent communications with Earth 2's team leader, Shane Isaac. So with no more gilding the lily and with no further ado, let's talk about Shane Isaac and Earth 2. Since the last time I was actually doing my job as a content creator, the controversies surrounding Earth 2 circled around what few updates to the project having all been monetarily focused in nature. Still, there is no new news on the updated trailer for the game that has been overdue for nearly a full calendar year, and then there's the subsequent circling the drain effect that the Earth 2 economy has faced. And I say circling the drain because as Earth 2 is a market for the buying and selling of map box tiles, as with any market, bubbles form and bubbles burst, and the bubble has burst for Earth 2 in a big way. And what has happened here is that people have been attempting to cash out. And as all these Earth 2 retail speculators are in direct competition with each other within a truly awful marketplace design, in order to obtain visibility, people have resorted to sharp discounts on the tile prices. This has a spiraling effect due to direct user competition as they vie for visibility, where we are seeing people list their map box tiles for as much as 99.97% off the listed value depending on which country you're looking at. Where in the US tiles, you see it is mostly in the 80s heading towards 90s in the percentage base for the top viewed listings. Earth 2 also saw the separation between them and Vicarious PR, something that largely won't do anything because, as far as I'm aware, Vicarious was attempting to teach and instruct the Earth 2 developers in customer communication and community management. Now, in terms of updates to Earth 2 while I was been gone, well, there were the Hollow Buildings, which is a built-in feature within Mapbox that was expanded upon, and then there is Jewel Crafting, yet another monetization feature where the use of such items is merely to trade, as the other stated features of Jewels are for components that do not exist. It is also worth noting that November is apparently the anniversary month for Earth 2, where Shane Isaac had stated, quote, "Jewel Crafting is the first of multiple announcements and updates we have scheduled this month, and we feel a great way to kick things off for November." That announcement was posted on November 10th, and as it is the 22nd as of recording this, with only 8 days remaining for the month of November, I suspect that this will either be the only announcement for the month or merely one of two, which I suppose if they manage to get out 2 updates and announcements, that would classify as quote-unquote multiple, so we shall see if they can manage to hit that very low bar. Now, in addition, it was confirmed today that Wolfgang Walk, the chief creative officer for Earth 2, has departed. Now, of course, we do not, nor are we ever likely to know whether it was his choice or if it was Shane Isaac terminating his employment. Now, I've been told by others that Wolfgang was disgruntled with some of the decisions made within the company. Whether that affected the decision to leave or not, it sounds somewhat likely. Now, either way, it is not looking good for Earth 2 and its current direction, especially considering the Earth 2 investors, because you cannot call them players because there is no game, still to this day have no idea what the game even is or will be. So let's talk about that for a moment. Even though I know I mentioned this in a previous video, it'll be a good refresher for everyone. Now, once upon a time, there was a project called Earth 2, and all the little boys and all the little girls in the world that descended upon it, speculative investing in mapbox tiles, clamored to explain to befuddled content creators what Earth 2 was going to be, and the descriptions were as varied as snowflakes in a blizzard, each one rather unique in its own way. Sometime later, on July 2nd of this year, Shane Isaac released an announcement in the E2 Discord server that, while it did little to nothing to describe the Earth 2 game itself, it allowed for some educated deduction in what the system would be. Now, in that announcement, he stated, "Lastly, we are close to finalizing an acquisition that will not only assist in the technical requirements and progress towards Phase 3, but allow us to create the first official example of a PvP game linked into the Earth 2 platform. This particular game may be some months away, but we're super excited to be working on such the release. We plan to showcase this as a pioneering project that will help us realize and create the foundations for the initial API and SDK plans. And from that, I was able to surmise the following based on that first sentence where he states they're acquiring a PvP game to be served on the Earth 2 platform. That Earth 2 will be a heavily monetized via micro and macro transactions platform to simply provide games. And the Earth 2 game itself will likely be a bare bones aspect that only serves as a backbone to sell access to other games, all wrapped up in Mapbox as a means to drive up and elevate the market value of a blockchain cryptocurrency, along with tile sales and all the jewels, mintats, holo buildings, building resources, advertisements, and I'm sure a dozen other monetization avenues that will come about in the weeks, months, and potentially years ahead. Think a mobile game monetization version of Steam. Now, none of the developers I've spoken to have been able to confirm this. I mean, hell, none of them can even attempt to articulate what the Earth 2 game will even be. But I have a high degree of confidence that my suspicions and deductions are at least mostly accurate. And that concerns me for a number of reasons. The first is the high likelihood, given the apparent greed of Shane Isaac and the Earth 2 team, of distribution exclusivity of games. And for that, I would ask my dear viewers to recall the initial and somewhat currently tempered backlash over the Epic Games Store and their paid distribution exclusivity agreements. Now, take the Epic Games Store and push that into a distribution system that will be heavily monetized at every level by Earth 2 in order to access. Now, to that, I feel that a great many gamers would simply avoid Earth 2 like the plague, and they would be, in my consumer advocate's opinion, be very right to do so. But sooner or later, Earth 2 will manage to get their hands on a game that is highly anticipated or extremely hyped, and that would serve to suck in players regardless and expose them to the already extreme monetization of Earth 2. The second is that such a platform could, if successful, encourage and incentivize other larger entities to follow suit. And to my mind, gamers already deal with enough in this world merely for enjoying their hobby and their preferred form of entertainment from the games industry that such a scenario would be, well, unacceptable. Now, as to what the PvP game is, I have been personally told by more than one developer precisely what that is. However, they were in off-the-record discussions, and unfortunately, I do keep the promises that I make to people, especially in terms of maintaining anonymity or secrecy. And all I can say in that regard is that it will serve as the pilot game in rolling out all that I've previously discussed. I did, however, request of Shane Isaac permission to be released from that promise, fully expecting no response, which ended up leading to a very lengthy discussion over the course of several days with Shane, where we found common ground in some areas, and in some others we vehemently disagreed, and in one scenario, in his not knowing what my channel is about, he ended up requesting, albeit inadvertently, that I violate the ethics and moral standards of my channel. Now, I won't show my initial request to Shane, as it does state the name of the PvP game mentioned in the previous segment, and even if I were to blur it, some people would be able to deduce the title of the game, and that's not something I would want. However, Shane's response left me with some very serious concerns as to Shane's mindset, where he alludes to a shadowy, behind-the-scenes figure he suspects or believes to be orchestrating all of the YouTube channels that have been critical of Earth 2. Take, for example, where he says, "I no longer receive notifications on Discord and do not check private messages on here, mostly due to the large volume of threats and abuse I receive from the followers of your account and the followers of other YouTubers who have fed fuel for such attacks and who, for whatever reason, decided one day to start the 'Let's do whatever we can to destroy Earth 2 campaign. It is, of course, a free world, at least for the most part, and you are entitled to your opinion. But you must understand that from our position, it's very difficult to ignore the possibility that someone is behind the orchestration of these attacks. And though I am not suggesting you are aware of it, there are things we know that you and others do not know." He continues with the shadowy figure rhetoric when he says, "Under other circumstances, I would have loved to sit down and chat with someone like yourself, as a gamer myself, and discuss all the things Earth 2 can achieve. I could even see people like you providing great advice and insights into what we could or should be doing with Earth 2 and the opportunity we have. But as mentioned above, there are a few difficult things for me to ignore, as I am not sure who is hiding in your corner. If it is who I think it is, then they do not want us to succeed, which in turn means you would have no interest in advising E2 or in accurately understanding our position." So as I said, Shane seems to be very much of the impression that myself, as well as other channels such as Upper Echelon Gamers, Kira TV, Big Fry TV, Callum Upton, Hogue Law, Josh Strife Hayes, and others are being controlled or manipulated by what would seem to be a competitor of his. He is either incapable or unwilling to understand that within the world of gaming channels that engage in critique of the industry and of the indie market, there are channels that invariably know each other and are even friends with each other, such as Big Fry TV and myself are friends. Upper Echelon Gamers and myself are friends. The other channels I listed I've never really interacted with outside of Hogue Law, but are still channels that I hold a great deal of respect for because they have earned that respect by creating solid content that is pro-consumer in nature. And as such, within these circles, we do watch each other's content and will be exposed to different projects we might not have otherwise been aware of. I was first exposed to Earth 2 from one of Big Fry TV's live streams, where a vehement and not too terribly bright Earth 2 evangelist spent nearly an hour ranting at Big Fry TV over what Earth 2 is or will be. And due to the constant haranguing Big Fry got from Earth 2 supporters claiming he had not done his research, I decided to take it upon myself to dig into Earth 2 and see if there was any meat on the bones. The result is what is contained within my previous videos, where I found the project extremely lacking at essentially every conceivable level. There is no boogeyman out to get Shane Isaac. This is merely the natural progression of multiple content creators becoming aware of a project that appears at every turn to be detrimental to gamers. Now, our conversations continued for some time, and if Shane is to be believed, it sounds like the Earth 2 staff are watching our videos and are taking feedback. Again, if he is to be believed. Shane Isaac, frankly, has not engendered trust in my mind, but in the interest of fairness, I must point out where he stated, I actually pointed out that with all of your collective knowledge and critiquing of games, wouldn't it be amazing to get inside their heads for a while? And yes, we did create a list of the criticisms and are still working from some of that list. Things we have already done in the background have been because of the videos and criticism you guys posted, which, if true, would be a very positive step in the right direction. However, whether or not that ends up being the case, there's simply too much currently wrong with this project for them to ultimately correct, in my personal opinion. Also, if they want to know what is going on inside of our heads, they already are in full possession of that knowledge if they watched those videos. If they watched Hogue Law's breakdown of their terms of service. If they watched Big Fry TV's content on the subject, Kira TV, Callum Upton, Josh Strife Hayes, myself. All of us have had separate opinions on a wide variety of areas, and we're very open and vocal about our opinions. That's a part of being a YouTube content creator. So our thoughts are out there. If they want to take them, by all means, please do. And then I received what amounted to a sales pitch from Shane Isaac. On November 9th, he stated, "Since launching Earth 2 12 months ago, we have never paid an influencer or content creator, or anyone for that matter, to promote or talk about Earth 2. Internally, we feel that should change a bit because what we are building will take time, and there are and will be growth pains in getting everything right. Moving forward, we are going to look at paying some content creators to get our message across and cover updates and moves we make, starting with announcements we have set to make this month. I am not sure how much you would charge to create a video covering upcoming updates or whether or not this is something you offer, but I do like the way you deliver messages, and I would much rather pay someone who is genuinely interested in gaming to be covering things we roll out or have planned. I personally feel it might also build some kind of relationship, plus you would receive information in advance on upcoming announcements and releases to give you time to create and schedule relevant videos that coincide with our announcements." So, what he was essentially offering there was both at the same time a sponsorship for paid video content, as well as monetary ties as a means of gaining access to information prior to public release. Which, to my mind, is everything wrong with games journalism these days, or at least a majority portion of it anyways. And I'll admit, my response to him was not terribly professional. It was angry, possibly unreasonably so, and I feel I could have gotten my point across better had I waited for that initial anger to subside. So I will show you all what I said in response to him, and I will then provide you with an actual rational response that should have been sent. Now I said, "You're joking, yes." Actually, that was a facetious remark. Look, I've been an extremely critical content creator in terms of Earth 2. I do not expect that to change, not anytime soon anyways. In addition, I can understand how attractive it would seem from a PR standpoint, from your point of view, to garner positive support from one of your critics, especially one of those critics of which you and your company filed numerous defamation complaints because you didn't like the word scam and did everything you could within the boundaries of YouTube to silence such critique whenever and wherever possible. If I recall, Australia, Italy, and the UK. The Italy one confused me, but that's besides the point. When I do take sponsorships, they're always for products that I actually believe in and I feel would benefit my viewers. Earth 2 in its current state is macro-transaction monetization on multiple vectors and a laundry list of promises, many and most of them unfulfilled. Hell, you still haven't even released the new trailer that was promised in January, and you honestly think I would accept money to promote this mess? That is a fundamental misunderstanding of who I am as a games critic. In my world, the gamer comes first and foremost, always and forever. Critics serve to provide information and context in order to allow people to make better informed purchasing decisions. If I were to take money from you to promote Earth 2, it would violate the moral and ethical standards of my channel, and that I will not do under any circumstances. Do us both a favor and never approach me with such an offer when you can't even keep the promises to your speculative investors. Even beyond that, the answer will always be the same. The answer will remain an adamant and unwavering no. Frankly, I'm having a hard time not being insulted right now by your assumption of my lack of ethics. I mean, hell, I'm blocked from even interacting with others on your Discord server and you want to sponsor me? That's a laugh. Now, the reason that he had sparked so much anger in me is that my ethical and moral standards for my channel mean everything to me. Honesty and forthrightness are why I have so many viewers that don't always or even don't often agree with my opinions, but still respect my content as a whole. Because when I bring my viewers information, they know that I do my best to be accurate and that I avoid such things as an unconscious or deliberate bias. And that is precisely what a sponsorship would be, a direct monetary bias. One that would either predispose me positively towards Earth 2 out of pragmatism, because let's face it, I'm barely scraping by as it is and not making videos for over 2 months, closer to 3 has done little to alleviate that, or it could predispose me negatively out of a conscious desire to avoid an unconscious bias. Either way, a monetary involvement would create some form of bias and would end up coloring my content, and that is something that I avoid at all costs. I made that mistake with a video game sponsorship once in the past with Black Desert Online, and I refuse to repeat that mistake. Also, paying creators and only allowing those paid creators advance notice on upcoming announcements would churn YouTube channels such as mine into access media, which is a big problem within this industry and would also generate in some the unwillingness to rock the boat lest they lose that monetary incentivization. Either way, it is an extremely bad idea for a YouTube channel such as mine to take a deal like that, as it would undermine the trust and faith that my viewers place in my channel. That trust is sacred to me, and it is not something I'm keen on losing. It is a critic's job to remain as objective as possible, because we all know true objectivity is a human impossibility, because our first duty is not to ourselves, but to our viewers or readers. That is quite literally our job, to provide information and our best interpretation of that information so consumers can make a more informed purchasing decision. And we cannot do that if we are being paid by those we are critiquing. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha. It's good to be back, and I'll see you next time.